going to sing some Sparshada Bhagavad Viraha. Janita Vila. Yeyanilo Premadana Karuna Prachur Heno Prabhu Kota Gela Acharya Thakur Kahamora Swarup Rupa Kahasanatan Kahadasa Raghunatha Patita Pavan Kahamorabhata Yuga Kaha Kaviraj Eka Kale Kota Gela Goranatharaj Pasane Kutibo Mata Anale Pasibo Koranga Gunera Neri Kota Gele Pabo Se Saba Sangira Sange Ye Koi Lo Bilas Se Sangana Paya Kande Narotamodas He who brought the treasure of divine love and who was filled with mercy and compassion. Where has such a personality as Srinivasacharya gone? Where are my Swarup Damodar and Rupa Goswami? Where is Sanatana? Where is Raghunath Das, the savior of the fallen? Where are my Raghunath Bhatta and Gopal Bhatta? And where is Krishnadas Kaviraj? Where did Lord Gauranga, the great dancer, suddenly go? I will smash my head against the rock and enter into the fire. Where will I find Lord Gauranga, the reservoir of all wonderful qualities? Being unable to obtain the association of Lord Gauranga, accompanied by all of these devotees in whose association he performed his pastimes, Narottama Das simply weeps. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Asatara Satyashri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Shri Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivas Sarigor Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopinath Shai Mukunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dhama Ki Jai. Mathura Dhama Ki Jai. Navadvip Mayapur Dhama Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dhama Ki Jai. Gangamaya Jamuna Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale. Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane. Namaste Sarasvati Deve. Gauravani Pacharane Nirvasesa Sanyavadi Paskatyade Satarane. Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha. Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Stam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadvadutam Parijana Sahita Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Vanchakalpatubhyascha Kipasandvyevata Patitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavevi. So just to satisfy your curiosity so you won't be distracted, I have a broken hand. It's called the boxer's fracture. You can look it up. And I did it on a chair. And I wasn't boxing the chair. So today we're going to read from Caitanya Caritamrita Madhya Lila, chapter 1, verses 172 to 181. And I'm just going to read through them and the purport, and then we're going to do a meditation on Srivas Thakur. So I'm just going to read through the verses myself. I'm just going to read through the English. Keshava Chatri informed the Mohammedan king that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was a mendicant touring different places of pilgrimage, and that as such, only a few people came to see him. So the king was worried that Lord Chaitanya would be a threat in some way. So therefore Keshava Chatri said, oh, he's not very important. Keshava Chatri said, out of jealousy, your Mohammedan servant plots against him. I think you should not be very much interested in him, for there is no profit in it. Rather, there is simply loss. After pacifying the king in this way, Keshava Chatri sent a Brahmana messenger to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, requesting him to leave without delay. So this is Kshatriya Dharma. He's being very diplomatic. He's telling the king, this person's insignificant, and he sends a message to Lord Chaitanya, you better get out of here. In private, the king inquired from Dabir Kash, Srila Rupa Goswami, who began to speak about the glories of the Lord. Srila Rupa Goswami said, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who gave you this kingdom, and whom you accept as a prophet, has taken birth in your country due to your good fortune. This prophet always desires your good fortune. So this is also diplomacy. Because again, the king was thinking that Lord Chaitanya was a threat. By his grace, all your business is successful. By his blessings, you will attain victory everywhere. So we see one kind of diplomacy is saying, oh, he's not important, and the other is, oh, he's God and he's your well-wisher. Why are you questioning me? Now, this is very interesting. Better that you question your own mind. Because you are the king of the people, you are the representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, you can understand this better than I. Thus, Srila Rupa Goswami informed the king about his mind as a way of knowing Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He assured the king that whatever occurred in his mind could be considered evidence. The king replied, I consider Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There is no doubt about it. After having this conversation with Rupa Goswami, the king entered his private house. Rupa Goswami, then known as Dabir Kash, also returned to his residence. Srila Prabhupada's purport. A monarch is certainly the representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as stated in Bhagavad Gita, Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the proprietor of all planetary systems. In each and every planet, there must be some king, governmental head, or executive. Such a person is supposed to be the representative of Lord Vishnu. On behalf of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he must see to the interests of all the people. Therefore, Lord Vishnu, as Paramatma, gives the king all intelligence to execute governmental affairs. Srila Rupa Goswami therefore asked the king what was in his mind concerning Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and indicated that whatever the king thought about him was correct. So this would be a very good opportunity to talk about Varnashram, and particularly the principle, when we talk about the 9 principles of Varna Dharma. This is especially the principle of cherishing your field of work. So if a person has a Kshatriya nature, one of the ways in which they cherish their field of work is seeing their work as service to the Lord. So I had someone tell me yesterday, the only way my work can be service to the Lord is if I'm directly preaching Krishna consciousness. And I said, no, that's not a fact. Any work that's not grossly sinful can be service to the Lord. So if the Kshatriyas see, as Prabhupada writes in this purport, I am protecting people on behalf of the Lord. I am protecting people on behalf of the Lord. Like if you have young children and you hire someone to watch your children. I have to go out shopping. Can you watch my children for 2 hours? So watching those persons' children is service to the parents, not just to the children. Yes, so if I'm taking care of living entities on behalf of Krishna, that is service. And this is the kind of dharma that we need to teach people. So Prabhupada wanted a Varnashram college in every center. So part of that is we help people identify what is your nature, and then show them how to do their nature as service. Show them how to do their nature as dharma. So those who have the dharma of Vaishyas, they are supposed to be taking care of Lakshmi Devi, who's the consort of the Lord. Right? Again, if someone comes and says, oh, here I am, here's my wife, can you make sure my wife has a nice place to stay and make sure she has everything that she needs? That's also service to the wife's husband. Does that make sense to everybody? So if I'm taking care of the earth, Bhumi Devi is the wife of the Lord. We say if you want to please Krishna, you please Srimati Radharani. So the Vaishyas have that facility. If someone is a Shudra, they're making the world work properly. Actually, Srila Prabhupada says the service attitude of the Shudra, is, he says this in the 2nd canto purport, is the closest thing to bhakti. It is the main mentality of bhakti. I want to please others through my service. And therefore, those who have Shudra work and Shudra mentality, they have the special protection of the lotus feet of the Lord. They protect their dharma by not compromising on the quality and integrity of their goods and service, even if they're pressured to make more money or be more efficient. The Vaishyas serve the Lord by protecting Bhumi Devi and Lakshmi Devi. The Kshatriyas by acting as the arms of the Lord, taking care of the non-agricultural land and animals and the humans. And the Brahmins serve the Lord by speaking on behalf of the Lord, by transmitting the wisdom of the Lord. So whatever our position, it doesn't matter whether you're a Sudra as an engineer or as a plumber, or whether you're a Vaishya as a business person or an agriculturalist, or whether you're Kshatriya as someone who's working for the government or working in law, or whether you're Brahmana as a teacher or a scientist. Whatever your position is, you can do your work as devotional service. So that's what Srila Prabhupada is talking about in this purport. So today's the disappearance day of Srivas Thakur. So we have quite a bit to meditate on. We're going to meditate on some of the main pastimes of Srivas Thakur. So of course every day we're saying his name in the Panchatattva mantra. Everyone together, Shri Krishna Caitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Srivas Adi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. So we offer our obeisances to Srivas and all the devotees of Lord Chaitanya. Because of all the devotees, Srivas Thakur is the chief. And Srivas and his wife worship Lord Chaitanya when Lord Chaitanya appears. So who is Srivas Thakur? So he's Srivas Thakur in Gaura Lila, and in other Leelas, he's Narada Muni. So So I think we talked the other day about how the devotees can expand. Did we speak about that the other day? Yes. And how the liberated devotees, not only can they expand, but they can be in different forms, doing different things at the same time. Wouldn't that be cool? When I was going to school, when I was a little kid, I thought, I wish I could be in school and at the beach at the same time. Yes. So actually liberated souls can do that. It is fascinating to me how Srivas Thakur is a householder and Narada Muni is an eternal renunciate. So he has one form as this eternal renunciate and he has another form as a married man simultaneously. So I find that quite interesting. And then we also know that Srivas Thakur's younger brother also exists simultaneously as Parvat Muni, who is one of Narada Muni's best friends. Then his wife is an incarnation of the nurse Ambika. So this is not like a medical nurse. This means like someone, basically like a nanny, right? Someone who helps take care of your children, who also fed Krishna with her breast milk. And his niece, the mother of Vrindavan Das Thakur, was the sister of Ambika in Krishna Lila. So here we see personalities who are simultaneously in Krishna Lila and in Gora Lila. And they might be in other Leelas as well. And then Srivas Thakur, he lived in Navadvip with Lord Caitanya, but after Lord Caitanya took sannyas, he moved to Kumarahata. And Prabhupada says that perhaps he moved because it was too much for him to be in Navadvip without Lord Caitanya. We know that when Uddhava visited Vrindavan, so he meets with Nanda and Yasoda. And I was hearing one class by Shiva Ramaswamy where he was talking about why Nanda Maharaj says what he says to Uddhava. And he says it could be that Uddhava said, instead of just grieving at Krishna's absence, why don't you get out of the house? Go places. Like we might say that to a grieving person. You know, why don't you get out and go places? But Nanda Maharaj says, well, wherever I go, I just think, oh, in this place Krishna did this. And in this place, Krishna did this. And in this place, Krishna did this. So it doesn't help me to go anywhere. So it's very possible that Srivas Thakur felt the same way about staying in Navadvip. That everywhere he went, he was reminded, oh, Mahaprabhu had his pastimes here, had his pastimes there. So Srivas Thakur and Advaita Acharya were the two main Grahastha pillars of Lord Chaitanya's movement. Srivas Thakur's home was the headquarters of the Sankirtan movement. So Srila Prabhupada writes that Avirbhava is a manifestation of the Lord, although he doesn't appear there personally. So when Srivas Thakur performed Sankirtan, everyone felt that Lord Chaitanya was personally in the room, even if he wasn't there. So many, many years ago, I don't remember how long ago it was, I was in a class given by Radhika Raman Prabhu. This is right after he'd gotten his PhD in Jiva Goswami, and he got his PhD when he was like 20 or 21 years old. And I think at that time, he just wasn't so well known, so hardly anybody came to his class. It was at a multi-day seminar where people were giving different scholarly classes, and Radhika Raman Prabhu was giving a series of seminars on Srila Jiva Goswami. But his morning Bhagavatam class was really very sparsely attended. That wouldn't be the case anymore, but it was the case then. And he was giving a class on a verse from the section of the Bhagavatam, the Lord's pastimes out of Vrindavan. And I really felt that Krishna was like in the temple room, that Krishna was manifesting from the Bhagavatam and from this person's class in the temple room. So this is Avirbhava, where someone is so powerful that the Lord manifests in that area, even if on one level you could say, well, he's not there. So now we're going to look at different pastimes of Srivas Thakur. By the way, I have been warned that at 8:20 that there's going to be a huge distraction going on in the temple room. So I don't now know how in the world I can talk about everything I want to talk about in 22 minutes. but I'm going to try. No, you canceled it? Okay. Okay. Because there's no way you can give a class if people are behind you doing construction. Thank you. They say don't ever try to compete with babies or young animals. Like if a little baby walks up, no one's going to listen to anything you have to say. But I think if behind me they were constructing a scaffold, I would just have to stop. Okay, so good, I have till 8:30. So there's the 21 hours of ecstasy. Now, any of these pastimes we could easily speak about for several hours. This is when Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu was worshipped as God. So generally, Lord Caitanya presented himself as a devotee, not as the Lord. And generally, if people said, oh, actually, you're the Lord, he would become upset. He'd cover their hand with his mouth and say, Vishnu, Vishnu, don't call me the Lord. But sometimes he displayed that he was actually God. So this happened in what's called the 21 hours of ecstasy, when Srivas Thakur worshipped him as God with a full avishek. And then Lord Caitanya was sitting on what Prabhupada calls a cot, and he exhibited transcendental opulence. He showed all of his universal opulence. This is in the house of Srivas Thakur. And again, we could speak about this at great length, the different blessings that Lord Caitanya gave during this time. So Lord Nrsingadev tells Prahlad, my pastime is to give benedictions. And so when Lord Caitanya was in this mood, I am God, he was like, what would you like? 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 We were speaking yesterday, we had a meeting of some of the devotees here who are in the field of government, and we were talking about one of the characteristics. Are you a turtle? We said that one of the characteristics, that's better, of those who have the temperament in the field of government is being extremely generous. So there's many descriptions like this in the Bhagavatam, that if the kingdom is in distress, they will give away everything. And people who are in the field of resources, they're not supposed to do that, because then there'll be no seeds to plant for the next harvest. So people may look at them and say they're greedy. They're not greedy. They're making sure that they have a stock to go on. But those in government, they can empty the treasury house. We have one example in the Bhagavatam where Lord Ramachandra and Sita gave away everything. The only thing Sita kept was her nose ring. So this is the mood of the Lord, who's the supreme ruler, the supreme king of kings, to just, what would you like? What would you like? What would you like? What would you like? So he called, where's Kolovich Sridhar, who made his money by taking banana leaves and fashioning them into pots. So he didn't make a lot of money, that you're not going to ever become rich with that kind of a business. And Lord Caitanya said, I will give you unlimited wealth, I'll give you all the mystic powers. We talked the other morning about mystic powers. And Kolovich Sridhar said, no, I just want to keep making banana leaf pots, and I want a little Nimai to come and haggle with me over the price. Murari Gupta is interesting because Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu showed Murari Gupta his form as Ramachandra. So although Lord Caitanya made readily and publicly available the rasa of Madhurya Bhav with Krishna, not all of his associates were in that mood. He had associates who wanted to be cowherd boys. He had associates who wanted to be devotees of Lord Ramachandra. And with some of them, he would even say, why don't you worship Krishna? And some of them did end up worshiping Krishna. But Murari Gupta, when he was given this instruction, worship Krishna instead of Lord Ramachandra, he came the next day to Lord Caitanya and he said, I'm just going to have to die. I can't worship Krishna and I can't disobey you, so I don't know what to do. And Lord Caitanya said, happy is the servant who doesn't abandon his master, and happy is the master who doesn't abandon his servant. Remember, we were reading in Brihad Bhagavatamrita the other day how liberated souls in Vaikuntha may have forms like the Lord they worshipped. Remember that? Some of them have half man, half lion forms, and some of them have fish forms because that's the way they worship the Lord. So he also asked Advaita Prabhu to explain the Bhagavad Gita, and he showed special mercy to Mukunda. So this mercy shown to Mukunda is very instructive. So the devotee said to Lord Chaitanya, you're just giving out blessings to everybody. What about Mukunda? And Lord Chaitanya said, well, I don't really want to see Mukunda. He hangs out with devotees and then he hangs out with offenders, with Mayavadis. So, I don't know what he is. So they gave that message to Mukunda, and Mukunda, who was waiting outside, he said, would you ask Lord Chaitanya if he will ever see me? And Lord Chaitanya said, in 10 million bursts, I will agree to see him. So they gave the message to Mukunda in 10 million bursts. Now let's say we got that message. Let's say we go out on book distribution and we say, please take this Bhagavad Gita, you read it, and in 10 million bursts, you'll become an enlightened soul. Do you think anybody would buy the book? Join the Hare Krishna movement. It will only take you 10 million bursts to achieve love of God. Personally, I would probably look for another organization to join, I'd say. That sounds like a little bit too long for me. But Mukunda started dancing. Someday I'm going to see Lord Chaitanya. He's promised me someday. Oh, and they told Lord Chaitanya this. They said, Mukunda is dancing. Then he's saying, the Lord's promised me after 10 million bursts I will see him. Then Lord Chaitanya said, okay, bring him in. So this mentality of the devotees, this is humility. Have we had someone in our life, we can think of someone in our life who really hurt us, someone maybe who lied to us, who betrayed us, someone who violated our trust in some way, such that we really, like we wish we could see them again, but we don't trust them? Does everyone have somebody like that in their life? Like you wish you could have a relationship with them, but you don't feel that you can? So if the person comes to you and says, I want to restore the relationship, who gets to decide whether and when the relationship is restored? The offender or the offended? The offended, right? Someone can't come to you and say, oh, I'm sorry I betrayed you. Can we have the relationship back? They can't demand it. If you're the one who are offended, you get to decide. Is this clear to everybody? Correct? So we don't really get this, but we're the offenders. We're the ones, Bahir Mukhe, we're turning, we'll look at Krishna to turn away from, we're turning away from Krishna. We are trying to enjoy the world as if it's just dead matter. Actually, it looks to us like dead matter because we've turned away from Krishna. We don't see the world as it is, as its divine nature, because we want to be exploiters. So it's up to Krishna when and how we are fully restored to him. And this is the patience of the devotee. My dear Lord, I'm going to wait for you patiently. Tatenu kampam suksamikshimano. Whenever you want to bestow your mercy on me, but I will keep waiting. I will not go away. I will not say, well, you haven't bestowed your mercy on me. It's been, 3 good rounds and you still haven't manifested to me. I'm quitting. Merciful. This is another very instructive story. So Lord Chaitanya regularly had Sankirtan in Srivas Thakur's house, and this was private. This was a private Sankirtan gathering. So sometimes we go and we bring Krishna consciousness to the masses, and sometimes we may have gatherings with people that's not for the public. Like our own deep personal realizations and experiences of Krishna consciousness, we're not supposed to discuss that publicly, but only privately with like-minded persons. So they wanted these private kirtans. But there were people who wanted to come. They wanted to crash the party. My dear friends, we cannot crash the party. Being given entrance into the deep, personal, private, secret parties of the Lord is by invitation only. You cannot pretend, you cannot crash it, you have to be invited. Thankfully, Krishna wants to invite us, so there we go. So they decided that because they weren't invited to the party, that they were going to blaspheme Srivas Thakur. They were going to try to ruin his reputation. We had a question the other day. She's not here. We had a question the other day about envy, so this is envy. So Gopal Champala, he placed all the paraphernalia for worshipping Durga outside Srivas Thakur's door. Because in Bengal, the Hindus are generally either Vaishnavas or Shaktas. And there's sometimes some ill feeling between them. So he put all the paraphernalia for being a Shakta out of Srivas Thakur's door, including wine. So he did this when nobody was looking. Now, how Srivas Thakur responds to this is very interesting. So generally, if we're accused of something we did not do, we generally work really hard to deny it and try to fight to restore our reputation, correct? Right? But that's not what Srivas Thakur does here. He actually called everybody. He doesn't clean it up. He leaves it there. He calls everyone and says, here you go. Here's the evidence. You can see that actually I'm a wine drinker. I'm a Durga worshiper and I'm a wine drinker. And the respectable persons, they could understand that this was a frame-up job. So they had a cleaner sweep everything away and clean the place. Now, it's very interesting. Many years ago, I was reading some work of Saint Teresa of Avila. She lived in Spain. She was a Carmelite nun in Spain around the time of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. And she was the head of a convent for nuns, and she wrote a set of instructions for the nuns. And one of the instructions, I have it up on my website, is that not to defend ourselves when we're being unjustly accused. And to let the Lord decide whether or not he wants to defend us. She makes the point that this detachment from honor, dishonor, fame, and infamy is very powerful preaching. And she says, after a while, when you practice this, you will no longer basically even be affected by other people's criticism. She said, you'll almost feel like they're criticizing somebody else. And she makes the point, we all do wrong things for which we don't get criticized. Am I correct? Has everyone here done something wrong in their life that no one's ever criticized them about? Oh, yeah, of course. If you say you haven't, then I'm going to wonder whether or not you are simply an AI hologram sitting here. So she said, why should I not be falsely criticized for things when I'm not justifiably criticized for things? She said, I don't complain. Why aren't you criticizing me for all my actual faults? None of us say that. Hey, why don't you criticize me for my actual faults? And she was saying that the Lord gets criticized unjustly all the time. Is that also correct? Do people blame God all the time for all kinds of things? Yes. She said, why should the servant expect not to be treated as the master? Now, she does say that we should defend ourselves if not doing so will hurt other people. So there are some times when people's false accusations against us are such that we need to establish the truth so other people won't get hurt. But that's quite unusual. I also read a very interesting book by a Protestant teacher called Unoffendable, where he talks about that no religious person has the right to be angry because they feel offended. And of course, this concept is expounded by Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu in the Shikshastika. Trinadapi sunichena, tarorapi sahishina, amanida manadena kirtaniya sada. To never think, I deserve to be respected. I deserve not to be unjustly criticized. So here, the residents, Srivas Thakur was like, sure, you can criticize me all you want. And the other residents, they took it on themselves to defend him. And then Krishna doesn't take this lightly. Saying false things about other people to get them in trouble and to criticize them. This is not a sin that Krishna takes lightly, especially when you do this against a great saint. But anybody. We should never bear false witness. We should never spread rumors. Prabhupada says to call a thief is not fault finding. That's something different. If someone's actually a thief and they've actually been convicted, and that's another thing. Go ahead and call the police. But we're talking about just going around criticizing people. And so Gopal Champala, who was the main person who did this, he got leprosy. And he left the village. And then this is also instructive. He sees Lord Caitanya. And in those days, the relationship between younger and older people in the village who were not blood relation, they'd call each other uncle and nephew, or auntie and nephew, auntie and niece. Even today in India, adult women are often called auntie. Very typical. Like my daughter teaches classical Indian dance. A lot of her students are from India, and they all call her auntie. So here Gopal Champala was older. So he says to Lord Caitanya, he calls him his nephew, my dear nephew, I'm your maternal uncle in our village relationship. Please see how greatly this attack of leprosy has afflicted me. As an incarnation of God, you are delivering so many fallen souls. I am also a greatly unhappy fallen soul. Kindly deliver me by your mercy. So the Lord doesn't like this mentality. If I do something that hurts your child, I have to make it up with your child. I can't do an end run around your child and ask you for forgiveness. That doesn't work. If we offend other living entities, we can't just go to God and say, please don't make me suffer for my offense. This basic materialistic mentality is, I want to do whatever I want without consequences. Not wanting to give up the mentality that caused us to do the evil thing. And so Lord Caitanya says, I will not deliver you. You're going to be bitten by these germs for millions of years. You're going to have to fall into hellish life for 10 million births. This mentality, I want to do wrong things, but not suffer for them. I'm going to go to God and I'm going to ask him to excuse me, is a very grievous offense. We call this what? Sinning on the strength of chanting. We have to rectify our mentality. So later on, after Lord Caitanya took sannyas, he came back, and this time Gopal Champala had actually changed his mentality. And he asked Lord Caitanya, what can I do to rectify myself? And here Lord Caitanya says, you have to go to that person and ask forgiveness, and then don't do this again. So sometimes we quote Srila Rupa Goswami saying that if you've done something wrong, you can just do bhakti, and you don't have to do any atonement. That doesn't mean that if I've hurt somebody or done something criminal against somebody, I can just sit down and chant Hare Krishna. If I go in your house and steal your money, I can't just sit in the temple room and chant Hare Krishna. I have to give you your money back. I have to restore my relationship with you. And I have to make a determined effort not to be a thief again. Does this make sense to everybody? So then Gopal Champala went to Srivas Thakur. And at that point, when he actually rectified his mentality, then he was free. So then we have this all these stories are so deep. Srivas Thakur's son dying. So we know that Srivas Thakur had this kirtan going on in his house every night. And one of his sons, who had been sick for some time, died in the middle of the kirtan. And Srivas Thakur said to his relatives, don't cry. act like nothing went on. I don't want to disturb the Lord's kirtan. But Lord Chaitanya could pick up that first of all, he's God, but even putting that aside, we can pick up subtle energies. All of us are able to do that. If you walk into a room where people have just been arguing, even if they stop the second you open the door, you can feel there's some tension in the air, right? So Lord Chaitanya said there was some calamity here. Something bad happened. And he said, why didn't you tell me? And they said, well, we didn't want to disturb you. Just see the mood of the devotee. Instead of going to the Lord and saying, fix my problems, the devotees are thinking, I don't want to disturb the Lord with my problems. It reminds me of a funny letter that Srila Prabhupada once got, where a devotee, one disciple wrote, Srila Prabhupada, I have a very big problem, and he signed the letter, your insignificant servant. And Prabhupada was laughing, and he said, just see, how can an insignificant servant have a very big problem? So the devotees are thinking, I don't want to disturb the Lord with my problems. But the Lord actually wants to take care of the devotees' problems. So then Lord Chaitanya went there, and he went up to the dead body of the boy, and he said, why are you leaving Srivas Thakur's house? And then the soul re-entered that body, and the boy said, I was living in this house as long as I was destined to live here. But now that the time is over, I am going elsewhere according to your direction. I am your eternal servant, a dependent living being. I must act only according to your desire. Beyond your desire, I cannot do anything. I have no such power. And at that time, everybody was pacified. So this understanding that we are not the body, na jayate mriyate va kadachid nayam bhutva bhavitava nabhuya ajo nitya shasvato yam purano nahanyate hanyamane sharire. Everyone is moving and acting under Krishna's direction, and these relationships we have in this world are not our ultimate relationship. Then Lord Chaitanya says, you've lost a son, but Lord Nityananda and I, we will be your sons. And Prabhupada often says, if you take Krishna as your son, as your husband, as your father, then you'll never be bereft of that relationship. So, of course, Srila Rupa Goswami talks about how we should meditate on Krishna's eightfold daily pastimes, and there's a number of books of our acharyas delineating these pastimes. And one time Lord Chaitanya was in ecstasy, feeling as Krishna, and he said to Srivas Thakur, bring me my flute! And Srivas Thakur says, the gopis have stolen it. And then Srivas Thakur describes the eightfold pastimes of Krishna. This is described in books like Govardhana Lilamrita and so forth. And Lord Chaitanya was very pleased. And one day the Lord entered Srivas Thakur's house, and he asked him, please read the 1,000 names of Lord Vishnu. And when Srivas got to the name of Nrsingadev, Lord Chaitanya started deeply meditating, and as he started deeply meditating, he started exhibiting the mood of Nrsingadev. This is another time when the Lord displayed that he was actually God. And he starts running through the streets with a club in his hand, looking very fierce, and people were just running from him, Oh my goodness, who is running through the street? And then when the Lord saw that people were afraid, he came back to Srivas Thakur's house and he threw down the club and he said, oh no, I've caused people to be afraid. I've committed an offense. And Krishna says one is dear to him who is not put into anxiety by others. So that was the pastime of Srivas Thakur getting criticized. One who doesn't allow the behavior of others to put oneself into anxiety, and who doesn't cause anxiety to others. So Lord Chaitanya says, I don't want to cause anyone any anxiety. And Srivas Thakur says, if someone just takes your holy name, there's no offense. What to speak of when you appear? How can there be any offense as you're appearing in one of your wonderful forms? Anyone who saw you was liberated. There was no offense. And so then Lord Chaitanya was very happy. So before I joined the Krishna consciousness movement, I was studying at the Jewish Theological Seminary in New York City. And there was a similar incident like this that happens in the Bible, where Moses goes down from Mount Sinai. He sees people carousing, and he gets angry at them, and he breaks the tablets of stone that the Lord had just written on with his finger with the 10 Commandments. And he goes back up the mountain, and the Lord says, "I'll kill everybody. They're all offenders." And Moses says, "Well, you can't do that. You promised Abraham that his descendants would be as numerous as the stars and the grains of sand." And the Lord says, "Oh yeah, you're right." And so I asked my teachers there, I said, how is it that someone wins an argument with the Lord? That the Lord says, "I was wrong, you were right." How is that possible? And I was told, "Be quiet, don't ask these sorts of questions." So if you don't understand that God's a person, then these pastimes don't make any sense. But he's a person. Like Srila Prabhupada said that when he went to see his guru, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, and he asked some question, and Bhaktisiddhanta defeated his concern. Prabhupada said, "I felt very satisfied that I was defeated." We feel like that sometimes, right? We have some concern, we have some doubt, we bring it in front of a saintly person, and the saintly person says, "No, it's not like that." And we're pacified. So Krishna is a person. And he likes it when his devotees say, "Actually, you're wrong, you weren't an offender, it was okay, you really benedicted everybody." He's like, "Whew, that's good to know. Now I'm happy." There's another very instructive story. So Devananda Pandit was explaining the Bhagavatam in a Mayavad way, which is actually offensive. But Srivas Thakur, who was present in that assembly, he was so ecstatic just hearing the verses of the Bhagavatam, putting aside this offensive commentary. He was crying in ecstasy. Now Devananda Pandit didn't do anything, but some of the other people who were listening to the class were disturbed, and they took him out. Like if someone here just started crying, then some of the devotees might say, "You're causing a disturbance," and take him out. So they took him out. And Srivas Thakur and Devananda Pandit didn't do anything about it. So he was also responsible for that offense. And he lost his realization because of that. Now, he didn't have much faith in Lord Caitanya. And he lost his potency as a preacher because of this offense against Srivas Thakur. But this is what's really interesting. In this case, he got rectified not by going to Srivas Thakur, but by serving another devotee. So that one time Vikeshwar Pandit was his guest, and Vikeshwar Pandit explained the science of Krishna. And Devananda Pandit became convinced, and he actually changed his mentality. So he also protected Vikeshwar Pandit when Vikeshwar Pandit was dancing. So this is also, although he committed an offense against one Vaishnava, he got the mercy of another Vaishnava. So that is a very interesting example. And this one also, I love this story. This is at the Rath Yatra, which we're about to have a Rath Yatra here, correct? That's why they wanted to bring in all this stuff. So King Prataparudra was watching the dancing, and it was amazing dancing because Lord Caitanya had expanded himself into 7 Sankirtan parties simultaneously. So each party thought that the Lord was dancing with them, although they couldn't see that the Lord was in all 7 parties. A few people could see. Maharaj Prataparudra could see. So he was looking at the dancing, but Srivas Thakur was standing in front of him. So, if we want to see some sort of drama or something, it's nice if you're in a theater where the seats are on a slant. But sometimes we're in some kind of assembly where all the seats are at the same level, or we're all standing, and if there's somebody right in front of you, or some really tall person in front of you, someone in front of you wearing a hat or something, right? Then you're like, trying to see. So King Prataparudra, he was trying to see, but Srivas Thakur was blocking his way. So Harish Chandra saw that Srivas Thakur was blocking the king. So the king wasn't doing anything, but Harish Chandra thought, "I should try to serve the king." So he's saying, "Hey, can you please move? Can you move? Can you please move?" Then he starts touching him, because it's very loud in the kirtan, right? My god sister Vishaka tells this story that when Krishna Balaram were installed in Vrindavan, she was trying to, and Prabhupada was offering the artik. She was trying to take photographs, and one of her godbrothers was blocking the way, and that she kept saying, please move, please move, please move. Finally, she said, listen, you're enjoying seeing this, but if you move, I'll be able to take pictures. And millions of people will be able to enjoy seeing this for so many years. And then he moved. But she said he kept ignoring her for some time. She kept saying, please move, would you move? I think at one point she even tapped him on the shoulder. So Harish Chandra, he's not able to get Srivas Thakur's attention. So he's like tapping him and getting more and more and more insistent. But Srivas Thakur is absorbed in watching Lord Chaitanya dance. And he's like, why is somebody pushing me? Right? So after he's pushed again and again, he just like kind of like, get away from me. Right? So then Harish Chandra becomes very angry. And he was about to say to Srivas Thakur, hey, then Prabhupada Paruja stopped them. And he says, you're very fortunate because Srivas Thakur has touched you. He says, I'm not so fortunate. You should feel obliged to him. Such a sweet story. So the devotee, a real devotee is like this. A real devotee tries to feel grateful for everything, tries to see the blessing in everything, the good side of everything. So one of my favorite quotes from Krishna book, chapter 20, where Prabhupada says, the materialist sees the world as very aggressive, but to the devotee, everything is happily situated. We actually see the world as the form of the Lord. We see that everything that happens, that the Lord is there, the Lord is present in every atom. Yes. Not a blade of grass moves without his will, and he is our best friend. So I hope you enjoyed this meditation on Srivas Thakur. And I think they want to set up all the paraphernalia here, so I think I hate to just end without questions or discussion. They wanted to be in here 10 minutes ago, so I think we need to end right now. So Srivas Thakur ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Well, I'm sure that I have made many mistakes for which I hope you will forgive me. Anything that's good or valuable in here is by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada and Srivas Thakur. Hare Krishna.